Looks like we're live.
Woohoo! Is this thing on?
So welcome to our regular weekly community team Q&A session. We skipped last week because we had the Ubuntu Online Summit. So hopefully you've saved up all your questions for this week, and you can, fire them at us. We're joined. It's myself and Daniel this week, but unfortunately Daniel's webcam is broken, so you'll just hear the dismembered voice of Daniel every so often.
Hello, hello. Yeah, I
There
could
he is.
imagine that it has a little bit to do with upgrading to Vivid.
Ha! You did that, did you?
I did. But
So in place of Daniel's face, you get my cat inside my my fleece, which he finds incredibly cozy. So we do this on Ubuntu On Air. You can either see this at ubuntuonair.com. It's currently the 18th of November at 4 o'clock UTC. We do this every week. You can also join the IRC chat on the same website. If you go to ubuntuonair.com, then you can join the chat, ask your questions live, and we'll try to answer them. If you prefix your questions with the word question, then it'll highlight for us so we can see it more easily in amongst all the other chitter-chatter. And we archive these. They go on YouTube, so if you miss it, then you can go back and watch it on our Ubuntu On Air channel. So subscribe to the Ubuntu On Air channel, but join us each week for the Q&A.
yeah, it's Ubuntu On Air everywhere. No, yeah, it's on Twitter, on YouTube, and you're going to make Jose, who looks after ubuntuonair.com, very, very happy. He wants everyone to follow all of the accounts, so you know what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah, we put a little announcement out each time there's going to be a hangout, and we don't just use it for this Q&A. We do developer discussions and various other sessions on this channel as well. So it's not just me and my crazy cat inside my jumper.
That's brilliant.
Yes. So
it really is.
So I don't know. Have you got any announcements or things you want to talk about before we get into any questions? Let the questions pile up.
Yeah, well, I think we can let the questions pile up. Like, how did last week was the online summit? How did it go for you?
Yeah, it was really busy. So last week I had a lot of sessions to do with the Core Apps project. So we had sessions with all the developers and did a lot of planning for each of the Core Apps. And for some of those, there's not a lot of work going on. So for example, the clock, there's just bug fixing and a few little tweaks here and there. But for some of the apps, there's more significant amount of work. So a couple that spring to mind, the music app has been undergoing a redesign, and most excitingly, we've just landed the latest version of the music app in the Click Store. So if you're using an Ubuntu Touch device, then if you go to the system settings updates, you should find a new version of the clock, new version of music. It's got a new UI, loads of bug fixes, performance improvements. It looks better and performs better. So that's awesome. We did have a bit of an exciting time last week when we pushed it to the store and it was broken, so we had to roll it back. So that helped exercise some of our processes around how we deal with broken applications in the store, which was good because it's better for us to do this now before we've got millions of phones out there in the field than do it afterwards, and have people writing nasty blog articles about how we deliver broken applications to our users. So I'm quite glad that we discovered some of the intricacies of rolling back and fixing issues with our store. So the other application I wanted to mention is the Calculator app, and the Calculator's had a big redesign as well. So there's a whole bunch of people who work in the Canonical design team, and they've been going through each of the apps and doing some iterative design work on some of them and complete redesigns on others. So you need to look out for new designs in weather, calculator. They've also contributed some new design work to the email client Deco, which is in the store. So there's a lot of design work and design changes to these apps, and those changes are being implemented by the core apps developers. And the calculator, for one, has quite a bit of work to do. And if you're interested in getting involved, we have quite a lot of things that can be done, both for the novice developer, someone just getting started. We've got plenty of things that could be considered paper cut style, bite size bugs that could be fixed, but also we have plenty of like more meaty things, either UI or back end work, and the calculator is a good example of covering all of those areas. So if you're interested in getting involved in core apps, ping me. I'm Popey on IRC, or send me an email, alan@canonical.com, and we'll put you in touch with all the other cool community people who get involved. You can also join us on IRC. We all hang out in #ubuntu-app-devel on Freenode IRC, and we're there most of the time. You can ping us, and we'll put you in touch with the right people and share all the design documents, because it's all open and public, and point you to where all the code is. It's all free software, and it's all good stuff.
Brilliant. And do you have a meeting coming up for the calculator, or is it just come to IRC and find people there?
Well, yeah, we do have a specific time slot, but if there's new people want to join, then we might have to move the slot around to accommodate those people, because one of the things about the community core apps is people are contributing to these in their spare time. And we've got people from all kinds of backgrounds contributing. They could be students, or maybe full-time workers, or a stay-at-home mum, or whatever. From whatever background you might have, and also from various regions as well. So if we've got two people working on an application, one who's in the States and one who's in Europe, then we need to find a common slot. So yeah, we do have regular meetings for all the apps, but we're constantly reviewing those meetings to make sure that they're the most appropriate times for everyone, so that we're not forcing people to try and join meetings during their work time, and we try not to have meetings at like 11 o'clock at night or anything stupid like that. So just get involved, and we'll work around you, really.
Brilliant. Excellent. Yeah, I had a good time at the online summit as well. A bit hectic time. It's always the case when you're track lead and running sessions, and then replying to emails in the meantime and all that kind of thing. But we figured out a number of things we want to do this cycle with regard to getting people up to speed in writing apps and scopes, and also having events where people can go out and show that it's actually not too hard writing an app for Ubuntu or writing a scope, and also how we can support local teams, like local community teams, to have events like that. And then in the community track, oh sorry, what do you say?
Go on. No.
I mean, in the community track, you often have a lot of random discussions about how can we make things easier, like is this community site, is it easy enough to understand, does it attract people, and so on. So we had a lot of comments there, and I think over the course of the next week we're going to find out what needs to be done there. And yeah, just had a look at ISC. There's already a question, and a question which
before you dive into the question, I just wanted to mention you talked about development and scopes, and we should probably remind everyone that we have a scopes contest going on at the moment. So if you are interested in getting involved in development on Ubuntu, Sorry, I can't type and talk at the same time. We have what's called the Scope Showdown. If you go to developer.ubuntu.com, there's a link at the top that links to the showdown, and it's basically a competition to get people to write scopes and to exercise our SDK and figure out what issues there are with the SDK, and help us to iron out those kind of problems. And for participating, if you create a good scope, then the judges, of which I am one, may well judge your scope to be the best, and if it is, then you could win a cool prize, maybe a laptop or a tablet or all kinds of other cool stuff. There's loads of information on the website, developer.ubuntu.com/showdown. We've already had a whole bunch that have been contributed. We've seen people posting screenshots on Google Plus and on their blogs talking about what they're developing. So it's interesting seeing what people are developing. But yeah, go and take a look and maybe contribute a scope.
Absolutely. And I just looked at the phone earlier, and we have a point of interest scope we just landed, and I tried it out. It's beautiful. I'm here in a co-working space, and sometimes I have to decide where I'm going to go for lunch, and just turned it on, and it showed me loads of things around. I had no idea what that was here, so that's brilliant.
Excellent.
All right, I just saw on IC we have a technical problem. Oh, okay. Yeah, we can just watch the other.
Cool.
Let me just figure it out.
So, did you have a couple of? Did you say there are questions already?
Yes. There's a question by Avim, who was also very active at the online summit. He asks, what are your opinions on Juno Bacon's governance concept? That was so for those of you who are very new to Ubuntu, Juno Bacon was the Ubuntu Community Manager until a few months ago when he moved on, and now works for X Prize, but he's still a member of the community, and he brought up a few thoughts on governance and how things work in Ubuntu, and asked some questions where we could go with this. And it's sparked quite a bit of discussion, especially on the Ubuntu community mailing list.
Mm-hmm.
So if I would take a stab at summarizing his blog post, I would say that he was of the opinion that people who work in Ubuntu governance, so for example the community council, the tech board, and others, they could be more inspirational. They could inspire more, maybe focus a bit less on doing bureaucratic things, be less reactive. That was the one sentence summary. Would you agree with that, or did I miss anything?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think he seemed to think that the Ubuntu project has lots of governance and administrative processes and teams, and that those people who have over time contributed to Ubuntu and worked their way, I don't want to say up, but worked their way up to those various positions, or been asked to contribute to those various positions, that those people should be inspiring others. As a leader within the community, they should be inspiring others to get involved and inspire new projects and drive the project forward, rather than what is currently happening, which seems to be, from Jono's perspective, that those teams are reacting. So someone will send a mail to the tech board, asking a question about whether something is technically possible or whether something should be done, and the tech board discuss it and reply. And similarly, there's a problem in the community. Someone emails the community council. The community council deal with that question, and that piece of work is then done. So I can see why Jono thinks that these teams are reactive and not inspiring new things. I think the counter argument to that was that the community council specifically has been actively speaking to each of the other teams that do various things. So, like the core apps team and each of the flavors and various other governance teams within the Ubuntu project, speaking to them and bringing them along to invite them. I'm not convinced that's enough. But equally, I'm not convinced that the Community Council and the Tech Board need to be the ones that do the inspiration. I don't necessarily agree with Jono. I agree that there needs to be more inspiration, and I agree that someone needs to be doing that. I'm just not sure those are the right people to do it.
Right.
Is my perspective on it.
Yeah. No, I think it's good that Jono brought up the discussion, and I know that it helps to take a few steps away and be a little bit less preoccupied with small detailed discussions to get a fresh view on things. I can see where he's coming from, and I would say that if we could have a look at processes and stuff that is happening in Ubuntu and find out this stuff is just not relevant anymore, or this could be a lot easier, I think we should totally do it. And it's what we've been doing in the past. Over time, you sometimes introduce new processes that don't make any sense after some time, so we could just get rid of them. I think that's fair.
Right, but are those things that the community council and the local council and things are doing, or is it just things that are there if people need them? I mean, are you saying there are things that the community council do that they shouldn't be doing, or that the local council are doing that they shouldn't be doing, that kind of thing?
It was more a general statement. Wasn't.
Okay.
If we were to have a look, if we did a process review or something and found out, okay, this is all stupid, we don't do it anymore, that's unnecessary, sure, then just be done with it. Like, there's no point in having councils for stuff that just doesn't happen or is of no use.
Right, yeah. And like team meetings where nobody turns up and
exactly.
Nothing, there's no minutes and nothing gets decided, nobody does anything. Yeah, I agree, and I think we could streamline things a little bit, but I don't think that would help the problem that there aren't inspirational people. I mean, there are inspirational people, they're just not in the positions that Jono suggested. So, for example, someone like in the core apps team who I know I mentioned core apps a lot because it's the thing I focus on like 99% of the time. But there are people who are inspirational mentors within the core apps team who are developing their own apps, developing components, creating new tools and new ways of working in Ubuntu that we just haven't had before, and we haven't needed before, and doing this off their own back without having to ask for permission, without having to go to some team leader or some council somewhere and ask if it's okay to do something. It's very much just get on and do it. If it build it and they will come, as they say. And I think we do need more of that. I know some people worry about the unstructured nature and 5 people spread all over the world all doing the same thing but separately and not realizing they're all collaborating. But I think that's where you can have people people in the community team or people in the community council who can like direct people and say, well, you're doing that over there, you're doing the same thing over there, let's bring you together and work on the same thing together. But those people should be empowered to do whatever it is they want to do. It shouldn't be a case of they have to ask for permission, or, you know, before you can do anything, first of all, you must have a wiki page. You know, that's kind of the old way of thinking, and we used to do that. Whereas these days, you know, projects, when you want to create a new project, you hack around on some code, and then you just push it to a branch somewhere, or you create a project on GitHub and you just push stuff. You don't go and ask for permission. And I think that's the thing we're missing.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I first wanted to respond to the bureaucracy bit that Jono mentioned, but when it comes to being inspirational, yes, I'm also under the impression that we have a lot of fantastic stories to tell, but we're not as good as we could be in telling them. So I mean, we both are quite involved in the project. We have lots of things to do there. Our to-do list is getting longer every single day. So sometimes it can feel like, shit, we're getting nowhere. But then when you go out to a random shop and somebody notices that you're involved with Ubuntu, like in every single case I meet Ubuntu fans, they're all super happy and they're super excited about what's coming next. So there seems to be a disconnect between the two things. Like there's a lot of really great stuff happening every single day, but there's probably not enough people talking about it. If we should appoint a community council to write blog posts, I would probably say no, but every single person can go and write blog posts, and I don't know, we can invite every single one of them to this hangout or to other hangouts. Like, there's no
share the work they're doing. Right.
Exactly.
And you know, we used to have a lot of bureaucracy and hierarchy, and a lot of that has not fallen away or fallen apart, but a lot of that has dissolved a bit as people have moved on. Like, you know, there might be a loco team, a community support team in one country where you know, the leadership have moved on and they're doing something else, or they're working with another project, but the individuals in that team are still working on Ubuntu, still contributing, still doing things. And I think that the people within that team should be able to just get on and do what they. Well, that sucked. Sorry, I got kicked out.
Yeah, same here. There's a glitch in the matrix.
And I said so many important and erudite and valuable things in that
I know.
time. Oh well, maybe next time. So the conversation is still going on. I know Jono's replied, and other people have replied in their own blogs, rather than like directly in the thread, which is strange. But there you go. Yeah, we'll see how that pans out. I don't know how that's going to resolve itself myself.
Yeah, I would be interested to see if we can find more people who are interested in telling stories, maybe, or talking to people, finding out what's new. Like, for example, the Ubuntu Weekly News team, they've struggled for a long time to find contributors, and I mean, there's so many things we could do. Personally, I wouldn't wait for somebody with a seat on any of the governance boards to do something like this. I mean, if they want to do it, great, but I don't think they need to have their community council, tech board, or forums council hat on for doing this. It's not necessary.
Absolutely. Okay, did you want to move on to other questions?
Yes, let's. There was a question, what is what are the main differences between 12.04 LTS and 14.04 LTS?
Oh man, newer stuff, and you get support for longer. So 12.04 support runs out in 2017. 14.04 support runs out in 2019. I think one of the problems with this question is, for those of us who work on this all the time, like 12.04 is a really long time ago for me, and 14.04 is still quite a long time ago. I mean, it's only like 8 months ago that 14.04 came out, but I haven't run 14.04 for months now, so I've completely forgotten what's in there. So for me, they're both LTS releases. They're both very similar. They're both Unity 7 on Compiz. Newer stuff on both of them on the later release. I don't really have a sales pitch to give about one LTS over another at the
moment. So I just loaded up wiki ubuntu.com/trusty-tar/release notes, and there's loads of stuff in there, loads of good stuff. Yeah, like newer kernel, more hardware support.
Right. I mean, there's always the usual stuff. There's like newer everything, but between 12.04 and 14.04, it wasn't like there wasn't a major. We didn't move the buttons. We didn't deliver a new theme or anything like that. It wasn't like a major change between the one LTS and another. So actually, a user who's on 12.04 who upgrades to 14.04 might not see a huge difference. They might see some performance improvements because a lot of work was done by Stephen Webb's team in Unity 7 and Compiz on performance improvements. But and newer video drivers, newer Xorg, that kind of stuff. But I kind of like that stability, really.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on stability having upgraded to the development release just 3 or 4 weeks after the release. But yeah, have a look at the release notes and find out what's new in there, and maybe you find a good reason to upgrade. All right, next question. Avim asks, what about Ubuntu Newbie proposed by me? I'm going to ask him for a link. In the meantime, here's another question. Can we has click packages in Ubuntu 15.04?
Well, yes, and you already can in 14.10 in the Unity Next preview image. So the desktop team have created a preview of what Unity 8 might look like on the desktop, and it's a preview ISO. It's not the default desktop, and it won't be the default desktop in 15.04. It's an ISO that you can install on a spare machine. I think there's some limitations on the GPU. It might have to be an Intel GPU until the drivers from NVIDIA and AMD support Mir. But it's effectively the same software that we have on the Ubuntu phone. So on this guy, it's the same software on the desktop. So it's a desktop ISO, Unity 8 plus Mir, and you can install click packages on that. And they go in. They install in the same way that they would install on the phone. So yeah, you can certainly try that out. It won't be the default. It certainly won't be the default in 15.04. But the plans for when it does become the default haven't been set in stone yet because the work isn't finished yet.
Yeah, as Alan said, one of the biggest blockers is Mir, and we require Mir on the desktop just so we can be sure that everything is super secure. That's part of the confinement story. You could probably get Click to work on a headless machine, but yeah, on the traditional desktop, it's going to take a bit longer until it's going to be there by default.
Cool. So there was a suggestion asking a question about Ubuntu Newbie project that has been suggested as something cool that someone could do. Yeah, it looks interesting. It looks like a new website that welcomes new people to Ubuntu, and we've made some videos in the past. We've got a bunch of YouTube channels. We've got Celebrate Ubuntu. We've got Ubuntu Developers. We've got this Ubuntu on Air channel, and we're not short of places to put videos. What we're probably short of is content and people to create high quality, compelling, engaging videos that people want to watch and will get people kick-started. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think don't feel you have to ask for permission to do it. Just pull together a few interested people and start building it, and maybe prototype it and show it off to the world. And,
yep, very much agreed.
See what feedback you get from it.
Yep. So we originally planned to have this at community Ubuntu.com. And if you have a look at the regular Ubuntu.com website, it points to community. When you click on community, that's where it takes you. But and community Ubuntu.com right now is a place where different teams just show off what they do. For example, the docs team will talk about how you can get involved in writing docs, or the testing team, they showcase the QA efforts, that kind of thing. But we always said we need to make this more engaging. We need to be a bit more encouraging for new users who don't really know what a community is, what it means to be part of the community, or how to contribute. Right now we have a lot of links going to Launchpad, create an account here, which can be a bit intimidating, especially when GPG keys and that kind of stuff gets involved. That's obviously a bit harder, but if we focus on small steps, like for example a welcome video on the first page, or I don't know, if you just pick a random initiative or effort you're interested in, and just find out, okay, how can we easily explain this to somebody who's completely new? Like, what would need to be part of a video, or who of the team can we interview? Stuff like that. I think that would be fantastic, and we're happy to put all the videos we have on there and modify the content. On community Ubuntu.com, you can just go to the bottom somewhere. There's a report a bug on this page, something like we can have discussion in bug reports about what to fix there, or bring it up on the Ubuntu community team mailing list. But I think that community Ubuntu.com should be the place where we invite and encourage people to get involved, if that makes sense.
Yep.
All right, we have more questions coming in. Aquarius asks, possibly already asked, sorry I'm tuning in late, OMG Ubuntu have just, while speaking about Corebird, called out the death of Ubuntu desktop applications and suggested that desktop app devs are targeting other platforms, Elementary, Mint, GNOME, because Ubuntu is concentrating on non-desktop platforms. And then a link to the article. Do you think the criticism is reasonable, and what's going on to alleviate the issue?
It's funny. This reminds me of conversations we've had in the past where people have complained that developers are targeting Ubuntu. And how dare developers target Ubuntu? You should be targeting the Linux desktop. You shouldn't be targeting Ubuntu. And the fact is that even though that software may be targeting Ubuntu, in general, people on other distros still end up running the same software. It still ends up getting packaged or ported or made available. Take the prime example being Steam. When Steam for Linux came out, there was a big brouhaha that it was Steam on Ubuntu, and there were big splashes across the Valve websites that recommended people use Ubuntu. But it was hours before someone had put Steam in the Arch user repository, and it wasn't long before people had packages working on other distros. So from a running the software on different distros, I think a couple of things really. One, I think that particular OMG Ubuntu article is looking at a couple of new applications for Elementary, and I think Elementary is getting some excitement because they have their own distinct visual style, and they're very active, and they're actively seeking out apps for their platform in the same way that we are on ours. I'm not convinced that it's a massive problem for us, because that software, someone will package it up and stick it in the repository, or someone will make a click package and stick it in the click store. I'm not convinced it's a massive problem.
You haven't read the I haven't read the article, and I don't know about Holbach. I don't know what this is about. But what I do realize is that, I mean, we always, since Ubuntu has been around, there have been a lot of developers who wanted to get their software into Ubuntu. Traditionally, that's been a bit hard to get something packaged up, and I think that's just gotten a lot easier. It's just that if you write the software now using QML and all the rest of it, there's no easy way to get it to desktop users. So that's kind of the problem we're facing right now. But if you're super keen, you can still get it packaged up the traditional way and get it into the archive for now. So.
And the flip side that I think Stuart is alluding to in his question is that developers is this the thin end of the wedge? Are developers moving away from Ubuntu as a target? And you know what? If you take a step back, if you look at this app in isolation and another app in isolation, there's a nice podcasting app that's been developed specifically for Elementary. There's about half a dozen apps that have been developed specifically for Elementary and so on. I think if you step back, you might look and think, well, that might be exciting for those developers, but spin forward a few years and ask, will Elementary still be around? Will it have a huge user base? You could ask the same question of Ubuntu, of course. We've been around for 10 years, and we have many, many millions of users. And I think the developers who are developing for those particular platforms might think, well, I'm getting a certain number of users from Elementary or Mint or whatever other, derivative distro. Maybe I'll also make it available on Ubuntu because there's these millions of other people who could potentially use my application. Or maybe they won't. Maybe they're doing an exclusive for one distro. That's it's their choice. It's entirely their choice.
And even in that case, this wouldn't stop somebody else to say, okay, there's an interesting app. I'm going to try to just put it into Ubuntu, and if that doesn't work, to try to port it or to take concepts and integrate that into Ubuntu.
Right. Exactly, and I imagine most of the applications that we're talking about here are all, open source software that's either on GitHub or Launchpad or wherever. And yeah, someone could take that code and just port it across if they're interested in it. I know, I like the look of that podcast client, and it could. I'm sure someone, if they're particularly interested in having that app on Ubuntu, would port it across. And I don't think the developer would be, anti someone doing that. It's just not their primary focus. That's all. In the same way that, you know, Steam, Valve weren't against people putting Steam on other distros. It wasn't their primary focus. That's all. I think it's the same kind of thing.
And I mean, if there's structural things that could make it easier to have apps working across different platforms and stuff, like, I mean, that's a separate discussion that can be had.
Right.
But I think for now, if people really care,
it's an interesting question, though.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. Right. Let's move on to the next one. Cornell asks, what are the main priorities for Ubuntu 15.04? Design, applications, or convergence? Ah, that was the question. Design, applications, or convergence?
Depends who you ask. I mean, there's a 15.04, you know, has multiple strands. You obviously got the server and cloud guys who are working hard on what they're doing with OpenStack and Juju and Maz and so on. And then you've got us working on what we're doing with the phone, for example, and the phone apps, and making sure they work well on tablets and desktops. So, from my perspective, one of the key things we're going to want in 15.04 is to have all of the applications that we've developed on the phone work well on the desktop. So we're engaging with the design team, so there is elements of design to make sure all these apps work well on the on tablets and on the desktop. And I know part of that is to update the Unity Next image, the one that's got Unity 8 and Mia that I mentioned earlier, so that it's got up-to-date, refreshed applications that are usable on the desktop. So yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I really like your reply to the question, because it really depends who you ask. Like, if you ask somebody in the kernel team, that will probably say, I don't care about either of the three. But yeah, I mean, all of it.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's stuff I will. Every release, there's something I'm surprised at because each person in Canonical is like 100% focused on doing the absolute best in the area that they work in, and you've got someone working on kernel, as Daniel says, or someone working on some cloud tool of some kind. That there'll be some magical cloud infrastructure thing that comes out in 3 to 6 months' time that I've never heard of. I don't know anything about, because I'm totally focused on my bit of work, and I find that just as surprising as they do when they look at the stuff that we're doing.
It's brilliant, and it's going to be very interesting once we get closer to convergence. Right now, it feels a lot like foundational work, like groundwork, stuff that has to be done to make sure that at some stage everything uses system images and apps can easily be put into the store, and everything is running the same code. Once we have achieved that and probably fixed a lot of bugs, that's going to be an interesting time, because I could imagine a lot of folks are going to just reorient themselves, like figure out, okay, what's next? Like, what do we do with this great platform now?
Right, and that's part of the reason that going back to Stuart's question earlier. Part of the reason that people are looking at some of the other distros, and part of the reason they're looking at things like Elementary, is because there's exciting changes that are very visible to a desktop user, whereas in Ubuntu, as I said earlier, 12.04 and 14.04 very similar, and 14.10 also very similar. So user visible changes. If I upgraded my mum's machine from 12.04 to 14.04 and then to 14.10, probably she wouldn't even notice, because she mainly turns the thing on and opens one application and off she goes. So I can see why people are excited by what's going on in other places. The problem we have at the moment is, as Daniel says, there's a lot of infrastructural stuff going on. Like, Mir and Unity 8, which you just don't see until it's delivered on an ISO image, and even then you might not see it because it's an ISO image that's a preview that you wouldn't possibly think to run on a daily basis. But skip forward a year from now, or maybe 18 months, or maybe beyond. I don't know timescales. I'm just guessing. That it becomes the default. That's a massive change, and people will need to be ready for that, which is part of the reason why these preview images are there, so that people can get a handle on the SDK and get a handle on how will their apps behave in Unity 8 and Mir. And chances are their apps will behave in exactly the same way. They'll produce a window on the screen that the user can click into. It's exciting but in different places and further down the stack, unfortunately.
Yeah, it really is. There was a question from Nanek. Is it familiar how Mir and switchable graphics will be supported out of box? I'm sorry if my question is asked before. No, it hasn't been asked. But
I've never heard that question asked, no.
I don't know. Switchable graphics, is this about having external displays, or I don't know?
No, it's so many modern laptops have two graphics cards. They have like an Intel integrated one that's built into the CPU, which is very low power and not brilliant for doing intensive 3D work. And they also have a discrete chip, usually NVIDIA, that is good for gaming and high-end graphics and stuff, or like mid-range to high-end graphics. And on other platforms like OS X, it can seamlessly switch between the two GPUs. And in X, with some bodges, it can switch between the two GPUs. And the question is really, how are we going to do that in Mir? I have no idea.
No,
but I'm sure the person who would know is Kevin Gunn, and we could probably ask him. The other thing you do, if you ask that question in #Ubuntu-Mir, you may well get a faster answer than my incoherent babbling. So give that a go.
Yeah, all the Ubuntu Mir mailing list, just in the mail there.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Not right now. Is there any other thing you wanted people to know?
No, I don't think so. Well, there's one little thing that has been a bit of a spare time pet project, which is if any of you really like the old style of GNOME 2, we recently in the community developed a derivative of Ubuntu called Ubuntu Mate Remix, and Martin Wimpress, who runs that project, has recently put out a 1404 based ISO image. So if you want a 1404 based distribution that uses the old style 2-panel GNOME 2 style interface, then you might want to take a look. If you go to ubuntu-mate.org, you'll find a download there. It's really quite cool, and it's really good for low-end hardware. And if you haven't got a fast 3D chip, I just thought I'd give that a mention because they've been working quite hard and they've just put out an LTS version, so that's quite cool.
Brilliant. Yeah, so there was something in the sponsoring queue. There was somebody who contributed a small fix, so I might look into uploading that later on.
Excellent. See, that's a prime example. Throwing back to the very first question we had, that is a prime example of someone just getting on and doing it. Martin wanted to create an Ubuntu derivative based on the desktop he loves, Mate, and there wasn't one already, so he just started creating it, and put all the infrastructure in place, created a build script that creates the ISOs, created an IRC channel, set up a website, built a Google Plus community around it, and he's got loads of people using it. It's got loads and loads of downloads, pretty favourable reviews. So that's the kind of thing. It's building on the platform, building on Ubuntu. He didn't have to ask permission from anyone to do it. He just took the tools and made it, and that's exactly what it should be. it should be that you can just take the tools and build what you want. That's the idea behind it.
And now there's new folks contributing stuff. I just had a look. It wasn't Martin who did this fix. It was Joe Torrance. Keep up the good work.
Cool.
Brilliant.
All right, should we wrap up there then, if there's no more questions?
Yes. No, there's no more questions. Thanks a lot, everyone. It was great to have you. Next week is probably going to be a permutation selection of David, Mike, or Nick. Maybe we should set up a poll or something, like who do you want to see next week or something? Maybe.
No, because then you'd either have the winning combination of never being invited, or the winning combination of always being invited. From your perspective, really.
Brilliant.
Yes, we're bored of him now. Vote him off. This isn't Big Brother. Right.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Better than you.
Thanks, Daniel.
Take care.
Take care. Yeah, don't build that.
No, let's not. Bye.